I'm sorry, I truly am, and I hope you can forgive me, as this is not something I do willingly. I simply have no other choice. If you're confused, don't worry, it will all make sense by the end of this. Let me start at the beginning. I work at a local grocery chain as a cashier. As such, I meet a lot of people on a near daily basis. A lot of the time it's regulars, but you'd be surprised just how many are total strangers, or just people passing through. This guy in particular was one such man, and he is the reason why I'm telling you this. He wore a large overcoat and a scarf that covered his neck and the lower half of his face. He also sported a large hat that hid his eyes well as he walked around the store with his head down. My coworker quietly pointed him out to me, making note of his unusual choice of clothing for the hot summer day. We quietly joked that he must have been 3 children in a trench coat, but soon quieted as he approached my register. I was the only lane open since it was a rather slow time of day. I put on my best customer service smile and gave the usual spiel I had given so many times before as I got the register ready to scan his only item, a single candy bar. The man said little, speaking only in a low, gruff voice as he opened his wallet and paid in cash. I politely took the money and handed back the receipt, only to find my hand in his vice-like grip as he roughly grabbed me and mumbled something that I didn't quite catch. Shocked, I could only answer with a look of confusion and a quick, "Huh?" That's when the man looked up at me, and my heart skipped a beat. His eyes were bloodshot and watery, tears running down his face in long, wet trails as his eyelids were pinned wide open, held in place by thin pieces of duct tape. His pupils were fully dilated and seemed to vibrate intensely. I gasped audibly as he stared directly into my own eyes and repeated what he said. 4 words. Just 4 little words. I wish I had realized then exactly what those 4 words meant as the man's grip loosened and I yanked my hand away while my manager stepped up to confront him. But the man was already on his way out, walking briskly away and out the front of the store. I inspected my hand as my coworker and manager asked me if I was all right. My hand was a little sore, but otherwise unhurt. As usual, we joked about the weirdos that we get in the store from time to time, as I set aside the candy bar the man had left behind. It wasn't until the next day that I began to notice the strange occurrences. I didn't see anything for the first several dozen blinks, but as time went on, I began to notice something that appeared at a distance in the darkness of my closed eyelids. Confused, I shut my eyes tight while on the bus to work, concentrating on the slowly approaching shape. It appeared to be the figure of a man, slowly walking towards me from far away. No matter how long I held my eyes shut, the figure stayed the same distance away from me. I became concerned. I had heard of floaters in the eyes and after images when the eyes are closed, but nothing like this. Here was an image of a man, in full color and detail, in a brown suit and hat, showing up whenever I closed my eyes. I Googled my symptoms, but nothing helpful came up. As time passed and my concern grew, I realized that the man seemed to get closer every time I blinked. He would creep closer ever so slightly, but it was enough to tell that he had made progress after several blinks. By this time, I was getting very worried, and I looked up symptoms of hallucinating with eyes closed. I finally made some progress, as this seems to be a common enough phenomenon to warrant a Wikipedia page and several articles, but nothing that suggests it suddenly manifests without the application of psychedelic drugs, meditation, or visual training. Nor did it explain how vivid, repetitive, and escalating my particular case was. I thought back to when the crazy customer in the overcoat grabbed my hand yesterday. Had he drugged me? I brought the hand he grabbed to my face, looking over it carefully. I found no puncture marks or cuts anywhere on my skin, and I distinctly remember washing my hands thoroughly after that encounter because of how disgusted I felt. Perhaps something I breathed in? I felt the beginnings of panic start to creep in around me, and I wondered if I should go to the hospital. I sat back in my bus seat and groaned, not willing to deal with any of this. I closed my eyes and rubbed them out of habit. The man was still there. I sat up straight and opened my eyes wide. For a moment, I simply sat there before furiously Googling on my phone again. I read the results with growing horror. Rubbing your eyes should interfere with any closed-eye phenomena, but it wasn't. I closed my eyes and rubbed them again, harder this time. The man was closer now, and he seemed to be laughing at me. A wide, toothy smile splitting the lower half of his face open as his eyes remained hidden behind the brim of his hat, his gaze focused downward. I pressed into my eyes, pain flaring in my sensitive organs as afterimages flared bright in front of the image of the man. Yet he continued to approach, unbothered and seemingly amused by my actions. I was starting to freak out now. I quickly got off the bus at the next stop, panic overriding my senses as I decided to cut through 2 city blocks instead of waiting for the bus to weave its way through traffic to the stop nearest the hospital. I cut through alleys and ran across streets until I saw the hospital just across the last street. All the while, the man in my vision was getting closer and closer every time I blinked. As he approached, I could make out more details, like the brim of his hat slowly tilting upward, revealing more of his wide, ghoulish smile lined with sharp, yellowing teeth. He was only a few feet away from me now. I stopped where I was, holding my eyes shut, mentally preparing myself to keep my eyes open for longer periods of time between blinks before I opened them again. I stood on the sidewalk opposite the hospital. Hope flared in my chest as I looked across the street towards salvation before stepping onto the asphalt. Now, reader, this is what brings me back to why I'm writing this. Because I made one terrible mistake that day, with the cuts and broken legs from the collision to prove it. And now, I'm in that very hospital that I thought would help me get rid of this hallucination. But I know now that it's not a hallucination, because the man is still there. He's looking at me right now, with those empty, hollow sockets where his eyes should be. I can see him standing there, inches away from my face whenever I close my eyes. I can see the nerves dangling out, dripping crimson tears down his sickly pale flesh. And he's still smiling that awful smile. God, I can feel his rancid breath on my face as I type this out. I asked him what he wanted, and he was more than willing to tell me. He wants my eyes. Of course he does. And I can do nothing about it now with my broken legs. I don't think that would help at all anyway. But there is one thing I can do. You see, he explained that I can be free of him if I pass it on to someone else. All I have to do is tell them these 4 words, just 4 little words. He can see you.